Hello, my friends. Y'all, Christmas is less than 1 week away. I'm so excited. So, the last 2 weeks, we've been talking about Jesus making this the best Christmas ever. So, I sort of want to dovetail off of that and start a new series today called It's Personal. You see, Jesus came to earth as Emmanuel, which means God with us, because he wanted to be with us, because he wanted to be in a relationship with us. And so this Christmas, I want us, you and me, to really focus on the personal aspect of the birth and life of our Savior, Jesus. So, have you guys ever thought that maybe you were really tight with somebody, you had a really good relationship with somebody, or you were really great friends with somebody, and then you figured out that your friendship or your relationship was not quite as deep as you thought it was? It's not a great feeling, is it? Because deep down, I think we all live with the expectation that relationships should not be fake. They shouldn't be shallow, and they shouldn't make you feel like you could spend a huge amount of time with someone and then be easily forgotten, right? So, regardless of whether or not you're a really social person, I think we all agree that when it comes to our relationships with our friends or the people we spend a lot of time with, we want real ones, not fake ones, right? I don't want fake friends. Friends who feel like they have to pretend around me or don't care as much as they act like they do or who don't even really know me. Whether it's the people you hang out with from school, from your teammates, or whatever, the people you have a group chat with, we all want more than a shallow friendship. In a word, we want our relationships to be personal, right? So there's a cheat code, by the way, to figuring out if a relationship is personal. It's easy. You know how I know if somebody is not personal with me? They call me some generic nickname like, hey, friend, or hey, chief, or maybe it's even like, yo, girl, lady, whatever it is. You probably experience this kind of fakeness. Somebody acts like they care about you, acts like they're your friend, and they keep referring to you as guy or girl or fam or friend or bestie or something other than your actual name, the one that you've literally lived years with, because you guessed it. They don't really even know your name. And people knowing our names matters, right? It makes us feel important. It makes us feel known. It makes us feel like there's a connection between us and the person who knows our name. Nobody wants a fake friend or a fake relationship. But you know what the opposite of fake is? Real, right? I totally agree when it comes to sunglasses or art or anything else I buy from wish.com that the opposite of fake is real. But when it comes to relationships, I think there's a better word. Actually, I know that there's a better word. When it comes to people, the opposite of real is personal. Think about it. Somebody can be real without knowing you personally. They can be cool without being close to you. They can even know something about you, like what math class you're in, or they may even notice something like what your favorite brand to wear is, but that doesn't make it personal. Being personal puts somebody in a whole different category. And that is what this series is about. If I asked you to name everyone you can that knows your name, how many do you think would be on that list? And I also wonder, if you did make that list, would you put God on it? Here's the thing. Some of you may have grown up hearing that God knows your name. There are a bunch of examples in the Bible about how God knows us that closely. Like when Jesus says this is written in Luke chapter 12, verse 7. Jesus says, talking to his disciples, he says, indeed, the very hairs of your head are all numbered. Seriously, y'all? That's getting pretty personal. While we all might think it's a little strange to know how many hairs are on our heads, some of us struggle with the idea of God really knowing us. Maybe you feel like, does God really know me? Or is he more like that football coach that just says, hey, buddy? But there can be a lot of reasons why you feel that way about God. You might feel like he doesn't seem personal because you can't see God and you can't hear him talk back when you try to pray. That's a real one, y'all. Or maybe you don't really know much about God. Maybe you don't even care that much about God. So it feels strange to think that he'd know your name and care about you. Or maybe you've met Christians who don't seem to care anything about getting to know you. So why would God? Maybe you think he doesn't seem personal because if he is real, he's just so big. If he created everything, what makes us so important that he would know us personally and individually? Okay, let's pretend that we all believe in a God who created everything. Are we really to believe that a God that created everything knows my name? While I think that these are some real and totally understandable reasons, y'all, I believe that he does. I believe that he cares for me and he cares for you. I believe that he knows not just my name, but he knows yours as well, and that he has our back. And here's why I think that fakeness is literally the opposite of how Jesus lived. Y'all, one of the great things about the fact that Jesus came to walk the earth, that Jesus came to be Emmanuel, God with us, is that we were able to see who God is in human form. We, as humans, as humanity, as humankind, were able to witness him as a human in the same fashion that we behave, in the way that we function. And that's what the Bible is, the New Testament anyway. It's all stories of how Jesus lived as a human, of how God incarnate, put in human form, lived on the earth so that we can understand him and so that we can know that he really knows us. But fakeness is literally the opposite of how Jesus lived. He got personal with basically everyone he met, y'all, real personal. He knew their names, he knew their stories. One of those people who Jesus interacted with that helps me believe that God is a personal God who knows our names is a guy named Zacchaeus. Y'all probably know the song. Zacchaeus was a wee little man, and a wee little man was he. He climbed up in a sycamore tree for the Lord he wanted to see. Yeah, that song. So this story is about Zacchaeus. So we'll be talking about Zacchaeus, though, for the next few weeks. To give us a head start, though, you need to know that Zacchaeus was a tax collector. That might not seem like a huge deal in our culture, though no one really loves the IRS. But back then, tax collectors were basically considered gosh, I can't talk today. Were basically considered scammers and traitors, period. First of all, Zacchaeus was a Jewish guy who was working for the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire was an entire nation that basically bullied all the Jewish people. Okay. So let me reiterate that. Zacchaeus was a Jewish guy, right? But he was working for the Roman Empire. He was working for the enemy. That already puts him in a bad light with the other Jews. So that was bad enough, but then tax collectors were not exactly stand up dudes. They'd always collect more than what was actually owed and they pocketed the rest. A tax collector was kind of like the guy that steals the money you're collecting for a school fundraiser so he can buy more energy drinks. Yeah, it was bad. And so this guy, Zacchaeus, y'all, he was a chief tax collector. Not good. He was like the worst of the worst to the Jewish people. So at this point in Jesus's life, Jesus had gone from being a casual carpenter's son to being a big deal. He was known for all the miracles he'd performed and powerful messages that he'd preached. By this point, basically everywhere he went, crowds would gather and try to get a glimpse of this Rabbi Jesus who was healing people. That's what happened when he was passing through the town of Jericho on his way to Jerusalem, and he met this guy named Zacchaeus. Here's how the interaction is recorded by Luke. When Jesus came by, sorry, this is Luke chapter 19. When Jesus came by, he looked up at Zacchaeus in the tree and called him by name. Zacchaeus, he said, quick, come down. I must be a guest in your home today. Zacchaeus quickly climbed down and took Jesus to his house in great excitement and joy. So let's break this down a little bit. Out of this giant crowd following Jesus to Jerusalem and the giant crowd of people in Jericho just trying to get a peek of Jesus as he passes through, Jesus stops, sees this little tiny guy up in a tree, and he stops to chat with him. He stops to chat with Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus, who was perhaps the most hated man in the entire town. Y'all, this is a huge deal. Getting this kind of attention from Jesus would have been like the same equivalent of your favorite celebrity randomly starting to follow you on Instagram and commenting and liking all of your posts, right? That would be insane. Not only, though, did Jesus call out the guy, the little tiny guy who was watching from the tree, but did you notice that Jesus called him by name? He didn't say, hey, big guy, or hey, little guy in this case, or hey, you. He called Zacchaeus by name. Then, not only does Jesus call him by name, but Jesus invites himself over to Zacchaeus' house. Y'all, everyone knows how much of an honor this is. It's a huge honor to be invited as the guest of honor at someone's dinner table, but especially if it's Jesus, right? But here's how people responded to this. The people, this is also Luke chapter 19, verse 7, but the people were displeased. He had gone to be the guest of a notorious sinner, they grumbled. All right, so maybe we wouldn't have used the word grumbled, but basically, y'all, they were being haters. This was a guy they didn't like. Maybe no one liked. Nobody would have wanted to have been seen hanging out with Zacchaeus, and yet Jesus called him out and went straight toward him. But the real talk, why do we care? Because this is not just a story about Zacchaeus. It's about Jesus, and it's about how he treats people. He paid attention to the guy on the sidelines. He paid attention to the guy who no one liked and who annoyed everyone else. He paid attention to the guy that no one was noticing. The guy I bet no one cared to try and learn his name. The guy that Jesus made sure to know and use his name. And by the way, he does the same for you. Jesus knows your name too. Y'all, this is how God sees us. Yes, he is the God that created the whole universe and everything in it. Yes, he is the God who has always been around, always since the beginning of any kind of time. And our brains cannot even comprehend that. But he also knows you personally. All right, so all of this might feel a little bit ridiculous to you. I don't know. Maybe the whole idea of faith seems a little crazy or a little far-fetched. That's okay. Like Zacchaeus, the best thing for some of us to do this week is to find a way to see for ourselves what Jesus is like. Zacchaeus probably had zero intention of totally changing his life when he climbed up in that tree that day. But he was just taking the first step towards seeing Jesus for himself. No matter what you think about God or about faith or about Christians or about Christianity, I want you to know this. It's personal. Faith, Christianity, Jesus is personal because Jesus knows your name. For some people, that doesn't always sit well. You might have questions about that. You might have doubts about that. And that's okay, y'all. It's okay. But what would it look like for you to hop up in that tree like Zacchaeus did that day just to get a better look? To rethink or reimagine what God is like? To start asking some of those questions. Maybe those questions might sound like, what is God like really? what does God say about me? What does God say about the people around me? Basically, Jesus changed the way everyone thought about God. There's just something that happens when we recognize that this God of the universe is a personal God, the God who became human to come live among us. It changed Zacchaeus' life. It's already changed the lives of so many others. And it doesn't stop there. We've talked about how powerful it is to be known personally by God, that He knows your name, He knows you, and He cares about you. But if that's true for you, that's also true for the person next to you, and your siblings, and your parents, and that kid at school that you avoid, or the teacher that you can't stand. Y'all, here's what I'm getting at. A relationship with Jesus is always personal. It's personal for you, and it's personal for me. So let me ask this. How can we make it personal for others? Your piano teacher, your lacrosse coach, the person you know in science class, the girl who somehow always ends up in your group projects, the guy who gets on your nerves, your best friend's little brother, the guy who maybe forgot your name that one time. They all matter, just like you. And here's why that's a big deal. The people around you may not know that God cares about them personally until you care about them personally. The best way to do this may start with some of the easiest steps you've ever heard. Number 1, learn their names. Number 2, learn the right way to pronounce their names. Here's something you should know. If your name is something like John, you may not have experienced something like what I'm about to tell you, and this is a bigger deal than you might think. You know how frustrating it is when someone writes your name wrong on your Starbucks cup, or maybe your substitute teacher who's reading your name from a roster reads it in a super weird way or completely mispronounces it? My teacher, my homeroom teacher when I was in the 10th grade, she used to call me Eleanor. I went by Paige, which is my middle name. I went by Paige in school, so all my teachers knew me as Paige, all my friends knew me as Paige, all my classes knew me as Paige. And then this teacher would insist every single morning on calling me Eleanor. Not only did she call me the wrong name, but she mispronounced Eleanor. That was super frustrating every single day. And so imagine that every day or every week times 10 that someone either forgets your name or is calling you the wrong name. It gets kind of awful, right? I never felt like she cared anything about me or knowing me or any of that stuff. So learn people's names and learn how to pronounce their names the right way. And use their names when you see them. Oh, my page got stuck. I get it. This seems super basic, but that's why it's a big deal, you guys. Knowing someone's name is the absolute simplest thing we can do to communicate that someone matters. And if someone feels like they don't matter, it can also have a huge impact. So an easy way to do this with people younger, so an easy way to do this is with people younger than you. Think about a couple years ago. What if you had some upperclassmen who genuinely took an interest in you and your life? How would that have made you feel? Upperclassmen. Do that for some freshmen or sophomores. Freshmen and sophomores, find some middle schoolers you can invest in or at least begin to call by name. Y'all, this is a trickle down effect. Here in Youth of Union, it could be at school, it could be anywhere. The point is that calling someone by name and making them feel like they're known and making them feel like they're important enough for you to take the time to know their name also lets them know that God thinks that they're important enough and God knows that they're valuable. Y'all, we have a personal God. He also happens to be a personal God who is mind-blowingly powerful, ridiculously creative, and overly graceful. But he still knows your name and he calls you by it. One of the greatest ways that we can point people to this kind of personal God is by modeling what it looks like to be personal with others. Jesus was Emmanuel who came to be God with us. But when he went back to heaven, he chose us to be the Emmanuel. He chose us to be the God in human form, the one who shares the gospel, the one who lives as the hands and feet of Jesus. And so this Christmas, I encourage you to remember that Jesus came to be with us because he wants that personal relationship with us. And we have an incredibly graceful God who loves us so much that he came to be with us so that we could be in relationship with him, but also that other people will get to know God through the way that we behave and through the way that we treat them. And when we treat them like we are the hands and feet of Jesus, and like we are sharing that love and grace of God, they will see God through us. And that's what we're supposed to do. That's what we're called to do. So this Christmas, when you're with your annoying little cousin at Christmas dinner, or maybe you won't be because of COVID, I don't know. Whatever the case, when you run into a situation where you can choose to be annoyed by someone, or you can choose to ignore him, or any of the things, whether it's the cashier at Target or your annoying little cousin, you have an opportunity to show the love of Jesus just in the way you interact with people. And I strongly encourage that of you this season and always. I wish you all a very Merry Christmas. I will not do another message until the Sunday after Christmas. So I wish you all a very, very merry and blessed Christmas. Do not forget why we celebrate. I love you. I miss you, and I will see you all soon. Bye.